but it's helping people see an authentic Jesus, the same type of Jesus that I know and love.
All of those emotions of feeling insecure, all of the experiences from my past, like all of those heavy things that was keeping me in one place came flooding out of me.
Inevitably, it's not until I'm there, the blood, sweat, and tears, seeing really what they're doing, hearing the real life stories from people, that's when the song comes.
Hello and welcome to Latter-day Profiles. I'm Brian Howard. We're here at the LDS Motion Picture Studio in Provo, Utah, and joining me today is Kathy Aiken. Kathy, welcome.
Thank you. You're so kind to invite me.
So good to have you. People on the Wasatch will definitely remember Kathy. She's been a sports reporter for KSL and also for the Utah Jazz and for the church, for BYUtv, and done a lot of things. Currently working on a project called the Forget Me Not Project, which you want to talk about as well. But,
right.
Kathy, I want to find out about your background. You sent me some notes, which was great, and you were obviously into sports from a young age. Tell us about growing up. What kind of sports did you like to do?
You know, I grew up in Holiday, Utah. My grandfather owned some property there, and for wedding gifts, all of his children got a building lot. So we all grew up together and just had the most idyllic childhood. But I was the tomboy, and I was out wanting to play with the boys while my older sister was in playing paper dolls. She thought I was weird. I thought she was weird. And anyway, I just grew from there. My father and brothers were athletes, and so I kind of followed in their footsteps, and it was just always a passion of mine.
So, and you were scholarship to University of Utah for volleyball, but you had an injury. What happened?
My freshman year, as I went in, injured my back and found out that I had a congenital back disorder that needed surgery, and back then it was really major, and I didn't want to go through all of that, and so that cut things short. But it opened another door, which I was very grateful for.
Well, I appreciated you talked about driving along and having, I think it was your uncle, drive-by call radio so you could see the announcers. Is that how it was?
You know, my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, lived just off South Temple in downtown, and every time we would go down there, I would make my father drive really slowly past what was then call radio, because there was a man with headphones on in the window, and I wanted to look at what he was doing. And I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I thought, I'm going to do that one day. I had no idea what he was doing, but I'm very blessed to have always known what I wanted to do. Yeah,
well, that resonates with me. I used to listen to old AM radio from far away when I was a kid. That seemed so cool to be able to do that. So sports reporting seemed like a natural. How did that come about?
You know, I was a huge sports fan, and, you know, back then it was just, there was no ESPN at the time, but it was interesting. My uncle showed me a videotape that I had done. I think I was about 10 or 11, and I was interviewing my cousins and pretending that they were famous athletes. And he showed that to me years ago, and I thought, wow, even back then, you know, that's what I wanted to do. And back then there was no women doing that. And so, you know, I don't, sometimes I look back and think I was crazy thinking I could really do that, but I was very blessed with a lot of wonderful opportunities, a lot of people that helped me along the way.
So what's some of your favorite memories? You were able to work with KSL during the Olympics and championships for the Jazz, all kinds of fun things.
Amazing experiences. I mean, I've covered everything: high school, college, pro. The Olympics in 2002. That was amazing. 2 NBA finals against Chicago, and darn it, we lost both times. I mean, I can still picture that the second loss. I was right there, near the court when Michael Jordan hit that game winner. I was like, no, not again. It was exhausting. We had to do every single night after the 10 o'clock news, we had to do a half-hour program. And there were times where we had 2 or 3 days of no games. So we had to come up with material every single night. And so it was exhausting, but it was so incredibly enjoyable to be part of something so big and so fun. And you could just see the community coming together, and everybody was rallying around it. It was just really a happy, fun time. And sadly, they lost, but it was wonderful.
Collective sigh heard across all of Utah. I was watching the game. Everybody was, right? It was like an 80%, 80 share on the rain or something. Everybody in Utah was watching.
Yeah, huge numbers.
In fact, everybody was watching KSL during the Olympics. It's like, wow, who's doing anything else? How did you work your way into it? Because you get out of college, there's not a clear career path. How did you work your way into working as a journalist?
You know, Brian, this was, there were just so many times I just saw the Lord's hand in everything that I did. There was a job opening at the Jazz, and it was actually as a receptionist. And I thought, I'm going to do it. I don't care what it is. I just want to get my foot in the door. And after about a year, they opened up a broadcast department. And so ironically, I was assigned to produce a story an NBA story, and the reporter was Charlene Wells, who was Miss America. And anyway, I was going to produce it for her, and she couldn't do it because it would have been a conflict of interest. And so I was thrown into the fire, and that's how it started, baptism by fire. And it was a great learning experience. And again, just wonderful people that tutored me and helped me along the way.
You know, now it's pretty commonplace for women in sports with ESPN and all the cable. There's a women calling games, which back, you know, when you started, you tune into a football game. There's never going to be a woman calling a game. So it's very commonplace. How difficult was that coming up through as a woman to break into, especially with sports?
You know, it was difficult. I think, you know, in Utah, I think sometimes we're a little slow to accept certain changes, and it was hard being a woman in this state. There's, I think, a lot of people who thought women shouldn't be doing this. And it was interesting. I spoke to, before I got into it, I went to all of the guys that were doing it at all 3 stations. And I asked, you know, how do I get in? What's your opinion? And one of them said something to me that I never forgot. He said, if you mispronounce a name, people will think you don't know what you're talking about. If he mispronounced a name, they would just say, oh, he just made a mistake. So the bar was, you know, obviously very, very high, and I made a lot of mistakes early on, and I was grateful they kept, you know, giving me the opportunity, and I worked with so many great people. It was just, for me, it was the best job in the world. It was just a dream come true. And having 3 boys, they were able to come with me to many events and meet all of these athletes, so for them, it was really fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. You have done a lot of other things. You worked with the church and also with BYU and BYU Broadcasting. Tell me about how did that come about? Because you've been working for quite a while as a sports reporter. Tell us about some other opportunities that came your way.
Well, there was an opportunity at KSL for a show called Mormon Times, and I did that for a year. And then a freelance opportunity came open at BYUtv for doing sports reporting, which was my passion, and as well as working at the Mormon Channel, and we did some stories for them as well. And we really did some remarkable stories from saints around the country and some of their challenges. And that's what I love to do, is tell stories of people who, I mean, we all have challenges in life, but just to see how they overcome them and persevere, and through their faith, they really come out on top. So that's how that came about after KSL, and just wanted to try some new avenues. And but sports was always my passion. If, you know, that was all that I ever wanted to do.
Yeah, there always been, you know, with sports or whatever, it seems like a double standard. So you go home, your mom, right, and married, you have kids,
right,
trying to balance that out. How did you work that out? Because that's always a struggle, no matter what, of course. Especially, it seems a lot of pressure on women to try to balance things out when you're working.
And you know what, Brian, when I first started is when you know, President Benson had talked about women should be in the home, and I can vividly remember walking through to getting into my car at KSL, and there was another woman who was also a Latter-day Saint, and I was just crying, and I said, I don't know what to do, you know. I want to follow the prophet, and but my husband and I feel that, you know, this is what I need to be doing. Back at that time, that was difficult. That was a difficult decision to keep going on, and I just think really back then it was kind of a hear him moment for my husband and I to figure out what we should be doing. And so we did. We just kept persevering, and then I recall President Hinckley talking about, you know what, just do the best you can, and that's what we were doing. We were doing the best we could, and I have a very supportive husband who was able to, you know, watch the children at night while I went to work.
Yeah, that's people don't think about that, but you know, you're sitting at home on the couch, whatever, getting ready for bed, having a snack, and you're still in full work mode.
Exactly.
You know, how do you balance it out with? How did you figure that out? During the day, I'm going to do this, take the kids to school, go to work. How did you manage that?
You know what? I admire women who have to do both. It's really difficult. I would, again, my husband would take the boys at night, and then I would have them through the day. And then when someone from the ward would come home after school, a young woman would come over and watch the boys until my husband got home. So there was only an overlap of an hour or two. But my husband is great. He would come down and would have dinner downtown, and have wonderful memories of the boys coming down and sitting in the station with me, and going around and meeting everybody and going out and onto the set. And so I made sure that they were involved, and I made sure that I never missed their activities or their sports at school. Work was generally very helpful with that. So I made sure that my children, I did not miss out on their events. That would have been awful for me. I'd never wanted to be that kind of mom. So I was blessed. I was really blessed that way.
That's tough. I know you said you've seen the hand of the Lord. Looking back, retrospective, tell me about that. Have you seen the hand of the Lord in the jobs that you've taken, how your career has progressed and moved along?
You know, it was interesting because there was a point where I was really debating if I should stay in what I was doing, and I had a distinct answer to prayer that that's what I should be doing. And I think in hindsight, a lot of it, Brian, was I met so many remarkable people that when I was put in as Stake Young Women's president, we were able to get so many of these amazing people come and do firesides at our stake. And I think they changed lives with their messages. And I think that I was just the instrument in helping, you know, get some of those people there. And I was really fortunate and blessed to have met so many wonderful people that way. I mean, they helped me, they've changed my lives. And what I'm doing today, the stories of people who have lived their lives pretty fully, I'm learning from them as well, trying just to be the best person I can be.
Yeah, you have all these years interviewing people, talking to people, and you're switching things up, no longer doing sports right now, working on people and telling their stories. Tell us about that. And as reading the materials you shared with me, really what inspired it was your relationship with your mom and telling her stories. So it's called the Forget Me Not Project.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
I had the best mom in the world. We had a very close relationship, and she got ill probably about 15 years ago and was ill for quite some time after that. She went septic, and most people don't survive that, and I was so grateful she did, but she never fully recovered. And so I had, when she was finally put into an assisted living center, I was able to interview her on many occasions. I would just turn on my iPhone or whatever and ask questions because I didn't want to miss anything when I wrote her history. And when she passed, I put all of it together for a video at her funeral. And I had so many people come up to me and say, I would have loved to have had something like that of my parent or my grandparent or whomever it may be. And I thought, you know, I can do that because I knew what a gift it was for me, that I will have that now forever. And I can, anytime I miss her, I can turn it on, hear her, see her. And it was a gift for me and my family. And I'm finding now that as we're doing it for other people that, you know, some of the things they say are changing their posterity's lives. It's really been an amazing experience. I've had some really spiritual experiences through it all. And it may be probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
How did it come about? I mean, obviously you had an experience with your mom. People see this. Did you just say, hey, I'm going to start a new business? How did that work out?
Well, I was at BYU at the time working with the students in the Daily Universe, the student newspaper, as well as in helping the students with broadcasting. Yeah. And a coworker of mine mentioned that care facilities do something called memory catchers. And so they'll just have, you know, some of the workers go up with an iPhone or something and try to get them before they get over into the memory care so that they can capture some of their memories. And I thought, you know, I have learned so much in the business. I know how to shoot a camera, I know how to edit, I know how to use music and make it kind of into more of a production. So I just figured, you know, I can do that. And I think I was at a point in my career, I had worked over 30 years and realized, you know, now's the time to do my own schedule and to do what I really want to do. And something I think was very, very meaningful. And this has become incredibly meaningful. And so I've just been so happy with it.
Now, how long have you been at it now? Has it been a year?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years, yeah. You know, it's interesting. I started with my former neighbor that I grew up with many, many years ago. She was, I believe, 97 at the time that we did the interview, and she was just amazing. Has incredible memory, had photos back to she talked about driving down to southern Utah, her father driving a 1925 Hudson, I believe she said. And she had a photo of this. Wow. So things like that, it just made her story so much better. She talked about opening the back of that Hudson and falling out. And back then they had gravel roads. If you can imagine how long that would take to get to southern Utah from Holiday. Yeah. And so the fact that she had the photos and that we could add to that so that she could share her life story with her posterity just made all the difference in the world. So some of her stories were just so amazing. And from when I was living across the street, she told stories that brought back wonderful memories. So I'm learning from these people. I'm learning, you know, how to be better and maybe what not to do. So it's been good for me as well. It's really been a fun experience.
You know, it's a cool thing. And thank goodness, you know, for the care people to try and do that with their cell phone. But obviously, it takes practice, and you're really good at it. What do you do to prepare when someone says, "Hey, I'd love you to come. It's my grandpa or my husband." How do you prepare to do that?
Well, what I try to tell them is that this is not kind of a book of remembrance kind of a thing. If they want a really long version, that's probably better for print. So we send about 15 to 16 questions to them that the child will go over with their parent. And sometimes we've had people that struggle with their memory, and so the parent will be there to prompt them and, help them remember, what was one of their favorite childhood memories or something like that. And then we ask them, is there something else you'd like us to ask? Were they in the military? Did they serve a mission? Something that would help, bring out their story more to life. And so we end up generally with about 20 questions. The interview's about an hour long, and then we kind of cut it down, add the photos that they would like with music, and it's more of a beautiful production instead of just, answer this question with an iPhone. But I also tell people, Brian, if you can't hire us or anyone else, turn on your iPhone, ask your parents or your grandparents questions, because you just never know, Ask them to bear their testimony, put it on their page on Family Search, so that it's there for their posterity as well. So just do it while you're thinking of it. I mean, the holidays are a great time to turn on the phone and start asking questions so that you have it to remember them by.
Well, that's a great idea, and I was thinking about that. It's like, how do you know what to ask? Because, you've got this person, they're 80, they're 90 years old. They had this long lifetime, and you're trying to make it into like an hour-long thing that kind of is a highlight thing. Right. How did you come up with the questions? Is this something you took a long time to kind of figure out, or was it trial and error kind of thing?
I think it was trial and error. The first few, we found that maybe we shouldn't ask that question, or maybe we should add this question. There's some people who want to talk about their faith. There's other people who don't want to talk about their faith. So we're very sensitive to whatever they want to talk about or don't want to talk about. So we talk to them ahead of time to make sure they're comfortable. Some people are a little nervous when we first get there, but we just sit down like you and I are sitting down and just have a pleasant conversation. Tell me about your life. And generally, by the end, I think they're so happy that they were able to share it. And I try to tell them, you're not talking to me, you're talking to your posterity. You're talking to your grandchildren, your children, or maybe people that are struggling in life, and share something that will help them. One of the questions I love to ask is, what is your message to your posterity? And it's interesting to hear what they have to say, and generally it's quite powerful.
Well, you mentioned, some like to talk about their faith, and I'm guessing some are, members of the church that you interview. What kind of things have you learned from them, especially with that question? Is it a religious base, what they want to share with their family, their posterity? It
usually is, yeah. The vast majority are Latter-day Saints, and so they will bear their testimony to their posterity. And I've had several experiences that way where they feel that something they've said might help a child or a grandchild along the way.
As you've been doing this, it sounds like you've been touched by quite a few of these people. What's been the feedback from the posterity, from kids and grandkids, and also from the people who've actually recorded it themselves, and hopefully they, stay along a little bit longer so they can appreciate it. What's been their feedback?
You know what? Everyone has been incredibly grateful and just said it's priceless and it's a gift. And I think that's why I started it, is because when I did my mother's interview, to me it was a gift. To my siblings, to my children, to her grandchildren, it was a gift for them, that they know that they'll always have that. And I think, people talk about family history. I think they're just talking about maybe a book of remembrance or the family history, but I think it's really powerful to see them on camera and to hear their voice, and just wonderful memories that they can always go back to, and messages that they can always refer to, especially if they're struggling or just need a little boost.
And I was thinking about that as we started talking. When you first arrived, I was thinking, my mom just recently passed away. And of course, since, in her later years, we had cell phones and things, so we recorded a lot of things. But my dad passed away about 23 years ago. And I don't think I remember ever seeing a recording, pictures, but no recording. What's it like for you to be able to turn that on and hear your mom's voice? Because it seems like to me, I know, almost it makes me tear up a little bit to be able to hear your mother or father's voice, and you haven't talked to them in so long.
It's amazing. I mean, it really is so powerful for me, especially if I'm missing her or whatever, and I turn it on, or around Memorial Day or around holidays. We loved Christmas, and so I'll turn it on then, and just hear her and feel as if she's talking to me, and it's just really kind of a personal thing to me. And I'll listen to it every year. I'm sure multiple times a year, just for that purpose. I have a dear friend who said, she has recordings of her parents, and has asked me if I can put something together, which I will certainly try. But she said it's her father's laugh that she hears in the audio and wants to put it to pictures or whatever. She says he had the best laugh. And that's what she wants to remember. And so it's just things like that. In fact, I interviewed a gentleman, his laugh was hilarious. And I thought, wow, this will be so fun for his posterity to replay that and hear that laugh, because it was super contagious. So just little things like that that are nice for these people to remember.
I'm just thinking about this. People who have done this kind of work don't realize the time and effort it takes. How long does it take you to put an hour piece together? How long is it going to take you to put one of these things together? I'm
glad you brought that up. It is very time consuming, and we try to make each one look a little bit different so that they're not all cookie cutter. It takes several days, actually, hours and hours, because really some of the hardest part is getting them to get me the photos. They're responsible to get me the photos in high resolution, and sometimes they're not quite sure how to scan photos or whatever. So that's one of the things that would be, even if you don't do something like that, digitize your family's photos, so they're always there in high resolution. But it takes a very long time in picking the music that goes well with each particular question. Some are funny, some are a little more serious, some are spiritual. So it's just a great little production piece that is really fun to watch.
Yeah, I like to be an advocate for that, because a lot of times people ask Uncle Jim to come do wedding photos or something like that. And I'm sure they're very wonderful, but realizing the care and the training that goes in to make something like this, that hour long, to make it so great, wasn't like you sit down and turn on the camera. It takes a lot of work, so I'm sure they greatly appreciate the time and effort you put into making those look the way they do.
One of my favorite parts of my job throughout the years has been editing. I love to edit. We would go, if we went, say, followed the Jazz to Idaho for, preseason camp, and I would have to hurry and turn something. Usually the photographers would edit, but I always wanted to edit because I knew where everything was. I knew where, how I wanted it to flow, the pictures I wanted to add. And so I loved that process of it. So I really enjoy the editing part of it and making it a fun production piece for all of their posterity. So you know how that goes. And it takes years of practice, and I've had many years, many years.
Kathy, it sounds like, all through your career, you've really found a passion. And this is another passion again. How do you feel about that? That being able to work and find something you love and are passionate about and be able to share it, it's such a meaningful thing with others.
Well, I think you can relate. I think we're blessed to do what we love to do. And I've always known what I wanted to do. And it was interesting, my husband pointed that out to me, how blessed I was to do what I want to do. And I said, well, and he's in sales. And I said, well, don't you like what you do? He said, yeah, I enjoy it, but it's not my passion. And I said, well, what's your passion? And I think it was hard for him to really pin it down. I mean, his passion would be working for the Los Angeles Dodgers, but how many people get to do that? But anyway, so I've been very, very fortunate and blessed to do exactly what I've always wanted to do. And again, you don't get there on your own. You have to have wonderful people that are willing to help you along the way, open doors, criticize or correct when needed. And I've had a lot of that along the way, both men and women. And it was interesting. I had a well-known female come to me at KSL and ask if I would move over to news. And I said, are you kidding? That's so depressing. Every day it's so depressing. I go, no, I want to do something fun. And so I have been doing something fun for about 35 years now. So.
Kathy Aiken, it's a pleasure to meet you and have you here and talk with you. And the name of it is the Forget Me Not Project. You can look it up online or on social media. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate the invitation.